Hey everyone, welcome to the Human Cloud Podcast, the spot where leaders come to drive the freelance economy forward. Hey, so today we have Karina Mikhli. Now, Karina is a fractional CEO herself and the founder of Fractionals United, the leading and the largest community for fractional individuals. So today, kind of like last week, we're really diving deep into what is this fractional economy? What's the difference, right? Is it the same thing as freelance? Is it totally different? Is it a sector of freelance? From our view, the real difference is that fractional is strategic and executive level. And so typically freelance historically, it's been more individual contributor based work. So it's been based off outcomes, right? It's, hey, build me that website, design that landing page, write that article. Fractional is a lot more strategic. It's the fractional CRO, fractional CMO. They're both building the playbooks, they're building the strategy, and they can also help with execution. Meaning they can actually lead the teams. And there's a prior episode from Adrian Tan, a fractional CMO over in Singapore, where he's physically going into the office once a week or once every other week and having his one-on-ones. So in this episode, we're going to really get into the weeds on what do fractional individuals do, what do they want, how do they really help their clients, what type of clients are they working with, what do engagements look like, and you're going to walk away between this and last week, you're going to walk away an expert on the fractional economy. Now, in terms of freelance, what's going on in the freelance economy this week and last week? Acquisition is still rolling. Fiverr had a recent acquisition last week. That is now 5 acquisitions since May. We're also hearing a lot related to investment. So the economy as a whole, not doing too well, right? Heard a lot. Don't check your portfolio this morning. I actually jokingly emailed our financial advisor and said, hey, what's going on? That's just kidding. I know it's everyone. But so the economy as a whole, not doing too well. But we've been hearing a lot about venture and venture coming back to the freelance space. Also last week, Tribe AI raised $3 million. Now Tribe bootstrapped for 6 years before now taking on $3 million of venture funding. So it's a weird time still. We're about to come out with an article where we really dug into the science of how leading platforms are growing, because based off the data from our trend tracker, it really comes down to brand and client relationships. Those are like the 2 drivers of what's always driving growth. And if you unpeel that onion, well, how do you get there? That's going to be an article that's coming out, right? If you're part of the community, you'll get early access to that. But so, strap up, enjoy, then most importantly, get out there and drive some change. Real quick, before we get started, have you checked out Human Cloud's industry landscape? Now, I know we use this word freelance, right? What we're really talking about is a massive industry where the supply, the individuals, are self-employed. But there's actually over 800 global platforms, and there's been over 100 platforms added this year alone. Now, within platforms, every platform isn't the same. There's large horizontal platforms, there's niche vertical, and every day there's a new niche vertical platform. Whether it's a platform for gaming talent, whether it's a platform for shoe designers, whether it's a platform for oil and gas engineers in Malaysia, you name it, there is a platform for it. And there's more than platforms. There are these things called hybrid agencies. There is freelance as a service. There's business to freelancer tools like Collective and Wethos. There's freelance communities. There's onboarding tools. There's providers. There's freelance management systems. Everything is included in Human Cloud's industry landscape. So go hop over to humancloud.work and check out that landscape. All right, enjoy the episode. All right, Karina, thank you so much for hopping on. Where are you calling in from?
Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn, New York. Whew. I was in Williamsburg a couple weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I am originally from Boston, so I'm bred not to like New York. So I did not know I was in Williamsburg, if I'm being honest. All I knew is that Levain Bakery and Joe's Pizza was next to each other, and I was in heaven.
Nice. Yeah, there's good food here, but I'm sure there's good food in Boston too.
No, no, there's not. There's not. There is definitely not. I don't live there now. Part of it's because of the food, mostly because of the snow. But let me. I'm going to tell you a super quick story, and you can tell me that yeah. Well, I'm excited to hear what you think. So, okay, I lived in San Francisco for a while. I lived in Seattle for a while. And what always cracks me up is I've kind of noticed the more creative and the creative plus money aspect creates this quirky thing where people like to either like look not as affluent as they are. And so I'll give you the quick example. So I go to this coffee shop, right, in Brooklyn. And the coffee was good. Coffee was really good. But I'm looking for a seat, and the only seat was on this couch that looked straight out of being outside for the last 100 years, getting stuck in rainstorms and all. And so looked kind of disgusting, right? So
Hmm.
you'd think that'd be the end. But then I go and I sit down, and it starts rocking, right? It starts rocking. And mind you, I'm sitting next to someone. And so now I can't even get a center of balance. And I'm just trying to write some emails on this couch, and I'm just thinking to myself, this coffee is 3 times the price here in Georgia, and this couch looks like it's from outside. So I just want to tell you that quick story. That was my Brooklyn experience. It was good coffee though.
I haven't been to that coffee shop. I probably wouldn't have sat down on something that looks like that because I'm very paranoid about where things came from.
Well, I'm bringing you next time. Next time, I'm bringing you to the coffee shops. But
Oh
but
my
but so listen, listeners, I'm sorry you had to hear me on the tangent, but
gosh.
I cannot wait for our listeners to learn from you related to fractional. We met pretty recently, so less than 6 months ago, and
Yeah.
I was seeing your stuff online, and I was like, oh my god, this is the exact person that I was looking to learn from. And so we've been seeing. So our background is we've been in the freelance. We've been calling it freelance forever, but fractional has been the fastest growing segment, and there's really good data from MBO partners. They call it the state of independent, and it's looking at independents that look fractional. And the defining characteristic is you can look at the dollars, and so they're usually making 100,000 plus. If you look at what they're doing, they're leading teams, they're driving strategy, they're not just doing execution related tasks or gigs. And so we'd been seeing this data for a while, and then I saw the great work you're doing, and I went, oh my God, yes, finally. And then I saw some visuals you had on defining fractional versus freelance versus consultant versus. So I'm just pumped to learn. But let's start with an intro on yourself, Karina.
Sure. So Karina Mikhli, I fell into fractional about 8 years ago, which is way before it started being called fractional. I Many moons ago, I was a teacher. Then I spent 2 decades in the publishing industry. Got tired of one too many reorgs and layoffs because of Amazon and digital, so started freelancing, and then consulting, and then this thing that didn't have a label back then. The way I used to describe it is that no one goes into business to run a business, and as soon as a founder gets product market fit or any modicum of success, they get overwhelmed with the day to day and hire someone like me to run the business. And that is such a mouthful that when I discovered Fractional COO said all of that in 2 words, I was like, thank you. It's just so much easier to say Fractional COO, although not everyone understands that yet. But that's how I fell into it. Um, I also do workflow consulting on the side. And that's more like project based, optimizing, automating, fun stuff like that. No code work. And I had a workflow client that I happened to mention in passing that I do fractional COO work. And she started calling me her COO without any discussion. I was like, all right, sure, that happened. Great.
Sweet.
Yeah, I'll take it. And then I added more and more time with her because we worked well together and they needed it. But as often happens, if you're a fractional with a small business, is like once you put the people and systems in place, they don't need you full time. nor can they afford you. So we parted ways in the beginning of 2023. And I came back to a very different fractional landscape than 2 years ago, which is the last time I was looking for fractional work. On the one hand, it's way more popular, right? Like, as you said, it's growing. People are writing about it, talking about it. There's so many people who want to give it a try. On the other hand, it felt so much harder and lonelier than the last time I was looking for fractional work. I now know that's because there's more supply than demand. I didn't know that back then. I was just like, where is my tribe? I don't want to do this alone. I don't want to figure this out alone. I had joined some amazing communities during COVID, so I knew the power of community. And I wanted one for fractional. I had this idea January 7th, 2023, which is a Saturday. That night I was Googling like mad, trying to find my fractional tribe. And I couldn't find it. There were similar things, like there were programs with community on the other side, or paid something with pseudo communities, but there was no community for the sake of community like I wanted. And not to say that all the others don't serve a purpose, but like I wanted real community where that is the focus. So I was like, all right, let's see if there's any interest. I remember looking up at my husband and I'm like, is this the thing I do? I don't know. Like, I'm usually the integrator, not the visionary. I rarely am the one with the idea no one has done. And, like I'm usually implementing other people's ideas. So I created a free Slack, very easy, brief landing page, messaged on LinkedIn and a bunch of my communities that I was doing this. And by the end of the first weekend, I had over 50 people. All of them was like, yes, please, yes, please. And it's been crazy because we're a little over a month. Actually, what is today? Today is February 6th. So in 2 days, we will be 13 months old, and we hit 7,400 members today.
First off, massive, massive, massive applause. What's funny, Karina, is as I was thinking to myself, I'm like, all right, when can I ask her the numbers? Why can I ask her the numbers? And you just made my life easy, because what you've that right there, there's going to be lots of reports that come out, right? And they're all going to say the same thing. There's been a rise of independence, rise of fractional, all those things. Deeper than any metric, though, is the fact that someone who was fractional literally just put out a feeler saying, hey, where are y'all, right? Where is everyone? And in 13 months, 7,400. Now, can you tell us about, and I feel like I'm intentionally putting myself on the outside because you're the expert here. Can you tell us about the typical not even the typical fraction. Tell us about the community. Seriously, just show off the incredible people in the community.
Okay, sure. So, Fractionals United is a free community for current fractionals and aspiring fractionals, as well as what we're starting to call the fractionally curious. I didn't make up that term.
Who's naming that? Does sound like a Brooklyn coffee shop, Karina. So I'm gonna blame you for that one. That is, wow. Yeah, that is. I'm just imagining a Brooklyn loft, with the words fractionally curious now.
Oh my God. If I wanted to run a coffee shop, I would so do that in a heartbeat. Oh my God.
That's incredible. So, okay. So you got the current, you got the aspiring, and you got the, I'm just going to call them the FCs. Okay. You got the FCs.
Okay. Yeah. So I specifically made it open to leaders considering fractional because I know that it's a growing trend, and part of what I want this community to be is a place for everyone doing or considering doing the work to like connect, collaborate, and learn from each other. And I know there are a lot of people in transition, either voluntarily or because of layoffs, and they don't know where to start. They don't know what this thing is. They keep hearing about it. So my focus truly is community. Like I want this to be all about relationships and connections, which is why I made it free. I know people are in transition. I don't want even a small fee to be something they have to think about and the reason they can't, benefit from the community. Um, I partner or look to partner with others helping fractionals. So Voyager U does this phenomenal boot camp for, fractionals 101. I've been speaking to someone just earlier today who's looking to do a fractional job board, fractionaljobs.io. Like, to me, the community is the center of a growing ecosystem, right? Where we have the discussions, where we come together, and I don't want to try to be everything for everyone. I just want to be the community and then partner with others, whether it's recruiters or matchmakers or platforms or benefits providers, anything and everything else that can help fractionals. And I'm happy to partner with them and, make it available to the community.
Yeah.
But outside of that, so we're in Slack. I love Slack because that's where I am professionally anyhow. And I got tired of logging into other platforms. So we're in Slack. We have events, both member lunch and learns as well. Sorry, all of a sudden my throat. Member lunch and learns, occasional member panels, sometimes external sponsored events. We have a growing list of resources for the community, as well as a member directory, making it easy for them to find others, they want to connect with that are adjacent to what they do. And just anything I can think of to help them connect, collaborate, and learn from each other. Because that to me is my North Star.
Gotcha. Now, I'm going to give you three directions, okay? So, and you pick which one you want to go. So, I'm
Okay.
going to give you the most generic, boring corporate speak in terms of the why, what, how. And so, you pick which one we want to start with. But so, the why being, why are these individuals being fractional? The what being, what are they doing? And the how being, how do they work, right? And tactically meaning, do they work on a retainer? Do they do days? Do they do 2 days a week? Do they do hourly, project based? So you pick. You want the why, you want the what, or the how?
I can start with the why and then go into the what and how. Why is for many reasons. Some people are tired of corporate, tired of not having a say. There is this weird thing. I don't even remember if I was the one who initially posted this discussion in Slack in the early days, but others chimed in. So it's definitely a pattern that we've noticed, which is when you're fractional, you're actually more respected and treated as a true peer rather than when you're W2. And it's ironic because when I went W2 in hindsight, there was this subtle shift, which I don't think the CEO did consciously. But it's almost like when you're W2, you belong to them. So you're just an employee. But if you are this highly experienced, somewhat expensive partner, they treat you as such. And you can say, one of the things we've talked about is that as a fractional, we can say no to the BS, to the politics. Because they don't want us focusing on that. They want us focusing on the leadership, on the strategy, on moving things forward. So we get to say yes to all those time wasters that employees don't.
Which the employees are very jealous right now. So I
Oh yeah.
I I will say one of the biggest worries, it was so funny, from the other side, right? So I've mostly I've been on all the sides, but the I wake up thinking, how do I unlock spend? That is literally my boring thing I'm always thinking about. And one of the toughest parts though was leaders thinking, and this was the CMO or the CTO or the chief product officer thinking, if my best full-time employees start working with freelancers or fractional, then they're going to see how much better it is and they're going to leave. Right. And so there's this weird balance where it's like, well, you're not wrong. Right. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to lie to you and say, oh, that's not going to happen. Like, yeah, it might happen. Right. It probably will
Yeah.
happen. But so that makes total sense of the respect. And what's really interesting when meeting, good fractionals. So one of the things, I want to hit the what and how first, but I do want to have a discussion about the different, not every fractional person is the same, right? And
Yeah.
there is the most accurate data I've seen related to this is that there's definitely an amplification effect, meaning those that were good in full time are better in a fractional capacity. And those that were moderate or not good are doing way, way worse. But the
Mm.
number's quite surprising. Only 10 to 20% of freelancers would be deemed needing protection. And it's really tough because it's related to the whole like classification debate of, okay, should
Yeah,
we
yeah.
be classifying freelancers as employees? And you'll have one side that says, well, they should all be employees. And the other side says, well, they should all choose which one they want. And the other side will say, well, they're getting taken advantage of. And the reality is, okay, 10 to 20% are probably wishing they were employees, or would be better off. But so too much of a tangent, right? But so it's really interesting to hear on your end, it's the respect factor and the ability to make an impact and the ability to not have to deal with the BS. That's crucial. Yeah.
Just to interject, that's not the only reason. That's one of the reasons, right?
Right.
Like, you definitely have more flexibility. You have more of a say of who you want to work with and don't want to work with. You can do different things, right? Like, I'm
Yeah.
both a fractional COO and a workflow consultant, and occasionally I do advisory or mentorship. Like, you can do more than one thing.
Right.
And keep interesting and relevant and just try different things out. Whereas if you're full time, that's all you really have the bandwidth for. There are also, people who were let go, who are thinking about it, and like, it sounds great, like, make more for less time while you're doing more impactful and less wasteful, right? Like, that
Yeah.
sounds great. And there are also people more experienced later on in their career that this is a great way to, like, kind of like semi-retire or even into retirement, just do a little bit just to keep fresh and relevant. Like, it serves so many different purposes
Yeah.
that I truly believe at some point this will be de facto for really leadership, because unless you're a Fortune 500 or 1000, chances are you may not need a full-time C-suite or executive in every role, right? Like, if we're the ones leading and executing, not leading but not executing, strategizing but not implementing, right? You don't necessarily need 40 hours. And like, why keep paying for what you don't need if you have limited resources?
Right. Right. No, it makes total sense. So let's hit on the what and how. You choose. Do you want to go down the what are most fractionals doing, or the how are they doing it?
I guess let's do what first. So it really varies from function to function. A fractional COO and a fractional CMO will probably have, there will be similarities, but there can also be very differences. A CMO and a CFO, like, some of those functions can do like days or half days, right? Like X amount of half days or X amount of days per month. And they tend to do like more retainer and outcome based work. Whereas people more like me, like the operators and the technology and even product, we don't do hourly, but we'll do like a weekly or monthly retainer based on not exact hours, but based on like blocks or inputs. So for instance, I know that I do weekly retainers up to a certain amount because I'm running the business. So it's not like I can disappear and just do 1 or 2 days. I need to be available every day. So I time block it and therefore know how many clients I can take in any given time. The marketers and finance, it's higher level, so they may not necessarily need to be involved on a daily basis, right? Because they're not executing, they're just troubleshooting and checking in to make sure the strategy is working. So they could do 1 day a week or 2 half days a week or something else. So it really depends. And even within that, it still depends. Like, I prefer to do, like, I have this model where, like, I start out very hands-on, get more fractional once the people and systems are in place, and then stay on very fractionally at a maintenance level. So I like having like one or two in maintenance and then one or two like in the more earlier hands on. But I know another fractional COO in the community who only does two clients at any given time. He's actually a W 2 with them, which most of us are 1099.
Hmm.
And that's all he wants. And
Hmm.
his team doesn't even know he's fractional. But like he works in a very specific niche where like this is what he wants and this works for him. And that's unusual. But like that is the great thing that like you can figure out like what works for you. There is no one right way. Like I would say don't do hourly, definitely do some kind of a retainer, but there is a fractional chief of staff in the community. When we were having this conversation, she's chosen to go hourly because chief of staff is so broad. She feels that there's always project creep or like scope creep if she does a retainer, and that she actually gets what she's paid for. She gets her value better if she does hourly.
Hmm.
So, the answer unfortunately is it depends. There is no one way.
Is there any, and that was great because it answers the what and the how. Is there any defying characteristics that are unique to fractional? And I'm going to throw one out that I believe is unique to freelance, and I wonder if it's consistent. To me, there's two, but the one of the most is freelancers, and I believe fractional folks too. They their incentives are tighter aligned to the business success because they are directly saying, no, I'm not going to sign a forever employment unless you're going to lay me off or put me on a PIP. They are saying, we're going to do this in 1 month and then you can decide based off my results. And so I think that is one overwhelming characteristic of freelance, is that the merit and the incentives are the most tightly aligned that I know of. But what would you say for fractional, things that are unique to fractional?
I agree with what you said earlier about that, if you succeeded in a role full time, you can do it better fractionally. There is debate on whether fractional is just C-suite or executive or not. I choose to define it as a senior leadership role. It doesn't have to be just C-suite or executive. Like if you're a director or VP, you could be fractional. The point is it needs to be leadership. It's not an individual contributor, right? You're not an IC. At that point, it's just part-time work. But fractional inherently implies leadership, and that is the whole, like if it meant the same as part-time work, we wouldn't need another label. Like it exists because it is different than just part-time work. And the difference is that you're a fully embedded leader. And I personally don't think you can succeed in doing this part-time if you haven't done it full-time. Like you know, this isn't the opportunity to try on the next level. You know what I mean? It's like if you haven't managed people, you shouldn't start fractionally. You first need to figure it out full time because it's hard. And if you want to be able to do it well part time, you need to put in like the reps and the time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think some of the best branding I've seen around from a client perspective, why engage fractional, is you're getting someone who's done it before, and not someone who's done it before meaning, I worked at Google and here's my bullet points. You're getting someone who is able to say, I was in this industry, I delivered these outcomes, and here's my book of business to show that proof. Now, I wonder how you think about, if we can, I'd really like to get tactical on where you see the infrastructure of the fractional economy. Now, you are doing, and I apologize, I'm going to use a Southern term, but you're doing God's work in terms of providing probably the most important piece, which is the community piece, right? Now, there's other factors. There's platforms, there's there's tax type solutions, there's financial solutions, there's a massive infrastructure, there's productivity solutions. I think the question, very very like blunt, is what is the role of platforms and marketplaces? Is there a role here? Is there not a role here? I think one of the most interesting things is when you talk to the individuals not on a platform, generally there's kind of disgust, but then when you talk to individuals who have done well on the platforms, it's just a lead channel, right? It's a lead channel, and it's a protection mechanism to make sure you're getting paid. So I've gone very back and forth on it, and I do believe the platforms have a real um, they serve a really really good purpose in what they do. Now, not all are as good as they could be, right? But so what do you think about platforms?
So I think as long as they are being honest and upfront about what they can do for you and what it'll cost, I think there is a place. Like I literally was just having this conversation with someone, and they're like, we have in in the Coda resource hub, we have a proceed with caution table, because there have been several conversations, and I won't name names, but several conversations about platforms that members have tried and feel are scams because they're being charged and there are no actual leads. Instead they're just scraping what's already on the web and charging them for access.
I've heard about those. Those are bad. Those are
Yeah,
bad. I've seen a couple. I there's a couple on LinkedIn that I see. Look at our job board, and they're paying, and it's just, come on. That's gross.
right. There's another one who, like, I have nothing against the agency model, right? Like you're
Yeah,
basically paying someone a cut for doing the biz dev for you, which makes sense.
yeah,
Absolutely makes sense. And I've considered, joining some of those because I have biz dev myself. So that you're paying for, you're paying a cut of your income because someone is partnering with you and giving you leads. But, there is another marketplace that, again, I won't name names, that charges you to be part of the community and then takes a cut. That's just wrong. Like you either charge for access or you take a cut. You don't do both. Like that is just too much.
yeah. Do you know the reason why they do that?
Why?
So, because one of the biggest problems is that it's really tough to vet. And one of the biggest problems about the vetting is that it generally doesn't pay off in terms of, if you have the activation rate on freelance marketplaces is typically less than 10%. So if you have a network of
Wow.
100, less than 10% of people have logged in the past month. And
Yeah.
maybe five of those are even actively working.
Yeah.
Now, this is where I have empathy for both sides. It's a lot easier to go and get 100 freelancers than it is to go and get 100 clients. And so matching that supply and demand is very tough. But increasingly, it's the niche platforms that are doing really well. And so those that can say we have the best fractional COOs versus we have all these freelancers. Now, to my knowledge, I know there's ones charging for access, but you will not find generally the good ones charging for access, even though they are investing heavily in the
Yeah.
vetting. But
Yeah.
they will charge, and I wonder your take on the numbers. What do you think about a platform taking 30% or 35%? What numbers to get scary to you?
That's way too much. Like I think 10 or 15,
Yeah.
10 or 15 is appropriate, and I wouldn't blink at that. Maybe 20, but more than that is highway robbery.
Yeah, we need more time. We need more time. The reason I would say that actually I would be okay with it is that generally the price can be higher if you have the protection of a platform that enables the indemnification and classification and scope help. So
Okay.
if you're simply matching and the freelancer's having to negotiate, okay, that's a different game, right?
Yeah.
But if you are enabling a $100,000 project rather than a $15,000 project, well, then 35% of 100 is better than 10% of 15, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So there's my little pitch for you. But I wonder where do you see things going right and wrong with the clients. And the reason I ask this is because one of the most impressive things about your story and your background, you've been in it for more than 2 years, right? And I use two just because generally that's enough to see if someone's going to stay. And so
Yeah.
what goes really right and what can go really wrong in working with clients in a fractional capacity?
So I think the thing that everyone has to do, and I think this applies for like consulting, freelance, whatever, is you have to be very clear upfront and set expectations. And I tend to treat fractional potential fractional work like I would any other interview. I don't do bids or proposals or that kind of thing. I do an interview, because I'm going to be joining their team. So it's a two-way interview where are interviewing me and I'm interviewing them. Because especially as a COO, I need to have full confidence that the CEO is going to let me do the job they're hiring me to do. And it's someone I can work with, I can communicate with, I can trust, she or he can trust. Like that CEO and COO relationship is like so critical that I literally will, like, if I don't get a good vibe, if this is not someone I want to work with, I will walk away. You can't force that. And I've been and also I've learned to be more picky. I've learned about what to look out for. Another thing I've learned is like there are no two COO roles that are alike. So to make sure that what they're looking for me to do personally, because there's the difference between responsible and accountable, right? Like the whole racy thing.
Yeah.
Like I can manage most anything, but directly where my strength is the people, the systems, the processes, the communication. If you want a COO focused on growth, I'm not a salesperson or marketer. I can manage them and make sure they're doing the right thing and it's aligned and communicating and integrating. But like you shouldn't be hiring me to do growth. You should be hiring a CRO, or a CMO. So I've learned to both set expectations up front and make sure that um what they're hiring me to do is what I can do. Like it aligns with my strengths. And, obviously that one will be a little different for other functions, but I think both of those are critical. Like you have to be really picky about, what you're taking on. And we've all been in places where we just need the money and we know red flag, red flag, red flag, but we have bills to pay. But you go into it knowing this is probably not going to be a long-term thing. And it's like a stopgap till you find something better. We've all been there. But if you are not in that situation and you can be picky and you are looking for long term, because that is one of the benefits of fractional, is that it is a long term thing. You should be very, watch out for personality, make sure what is needed matches your interests and strengths and experience, and make sure you are all on the same page. Like have that conversation, make sure they understand what you will be doing and won't be doing, what support you do need, what you can bring to the table, and what they are going to have to hire to do because it's not your strength. And like that just needs to be spelled out and very clear. And if you do all of that, chances are it'll work out. Like things happen, but if like if you continue to communicate and I communicate over communicate, like rather over than under. And that's something I've had to learn, because you have to communicate up as much as across and down. It's critical. But if you communicate, if you align, chances are it'll work out. And if something changes, like I've had that happen where the thing they hired me for was no longer the right thing at a certain place, and we parted amicably, and I actually helped find the person that is now the fit that I no longer am. And that happens. Companies go through different stages, need different expertise at different points, and that's fine. As long as you are communicating and aligned, then it's a mutual decision, and it's not like you failed, you suck, get out of here.
Yeah. I feel like one common theme with on the client side and the freelancer side or the fractional side is the scope is so crucial it's so crucial for the scope to be explicit
Yes.
and measured. And I feel like in full-time employment, I mean, I'm not going to lie, there are some days that I miss this, just not really having to worry about what I'm really doing, right? Like,
Yeah.
boy, do I
Yeah.
sometimes just miss, like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to not worry about anything. I'm going to go lay on the couch and nothing's going to happen. The company's going to be there tomorrow. We're fine,
Yeah. Yeah.
But in a fractional capacity, you have to know exactly what you said you were going to do and make sure you're the one,
Yeah.
So that's something very clear. Now, I want to give you, Karina, 2 to 5 minutes, however long you want to take. I want you to tell us what is most exciting for you and the community and the fractional movement in general over the next year, right? Are there any conferences or events or releases or things that everyone that's passionate about this needs to know about?
Yeah. So go to fractionalconference.com. We had the first ever fractional conference in October in Minnesota. It was dubbed Frac 2023. So Frac 2024 is already, you can pre-register for it. And actually, last year, so it's headed up by John Arms and Voyager U, but we are now spinning it off into its own entity, and I'm actually the fractional COO for that entity. Um, it works, it works. I was going to be involved anyhow, and they're like, "So we need someone to do this." I'm like, "Okay, fine, I'll do it." um, and I'm happy to be involved, and everyone's awesome. We have an amazing team. So Frac 2024 is definitely something to look out for. There may be some other smaller fractional conferences. We're talking about maybe doing something in the East Coast, whatever. It's all still in the early stages. We're still doing foundational planning. For Fractionals United, I'm going to keep looking out for other partnerships. We're going to keep growing. Hopefully it's going to become more and more the place for all fractionals to want to hang out and communicate and connect and learn through our partners or learn through events, etc. And I don't know if it's going to be a year. I don't think it's going to be in a year, maybe 3, maybe 5. But I really believe someday it's just going to be, there's going to be job boards, there's going to be easy ways, just like, so there is going to be a Fractional Leadership Association, which is kind of going to be the professional association for fractional leaders. And, I'm sure we'll do some interesting lobbying and things for the betterment of all. LinkedIn should have a tag for fractional, Indeed should have a tag for fractional. It should just be something everybody knows, just like part-time, full-time, fractional.
Right. Absolutely. Well, listen, Karina, this has been beyond a blast. Where can our listeners find you, most important?
LinkedIn. You can go to karinamikhli.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. And obviously the community is fractionalsunited.com.
Perfect. All right, Karina, thank you so much for hopping on.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.